I read Start With Why by Simon Sinek, and
Yes,
he
good
talks about Southwest Airlines, where their whole mantra is like their employees first, right? Which is why they have such great employees. It's why my wife and I only fly Southwest,
Mm.
because you're always going to have a couple bad experiences. We've had a couple,
Mhm.
but for the most part, like, their employees are awesome. But that's the challenging thing, or the temptation, I guess, is to value your customers more. But man, so like when a customer complains, then you're just either chewing out your employee, you're making them the bad guy. But when people work for a place where it's like, no, this person believes in me, they have my back, they support
Mhm.
me. Yeah, there's so much more motivation to be a part of it and to enjoy it and to just buy in, right? Like culture,
Mhm.
creating a culture that people can buy into, which is that was the challenging thing of starting a junk removal company, because part of my question was like, well, how much culture and value can you have in junk removal?
Right.
And the more I did it, the more it was just so apparent that I was like,
Mhm.
man, like, we are helping people with really valued items. So when we approach it with honor and respect, that's a whole different experience. And then when we have this mantra of your friends with a truck, so we tell our employees, that means it's on the back of our shirts, man. So it means that we treat everybody the way we treat our friends. Like, that's
Mhm.
things that people can buy into. But I completely agree. I mean, I think a lot of businesses miss out on that, like really
Mhm.
caring for the people who are pouring into your culture, who are an extension of yourself in your business. I mean, that's essential, right?
Yeah.
It's yeah. So I love that, and I
Mhm.
love Quick Trip.
Yeah,
I went
sweet,
to
love it.
I went to school. I went to college in the Midwest,
Okay,
and
nice.
so we would always stop at Quick Trips. And
Is it true, like what I said? Like, every time you go there, the employees, you don't feel like they don't want to be there.
yeah, right. That and I got to shout out Bucky's too, man.
Oh, see, I haven't been to
Just-
Bucky's
oh,
yet.
it's
We got to go to
awesome.
NoCo, because don't they have one in Northern
Yeah,
Colorado right
yeah.
now? Yeah.
I haven't
They're
been to
gonna
that
be
one yet,
competing,
but yeah, we've been to them in Texas, but it's the same thing, man.
Mhm.
I mean, you could just go on a date there and hang out
Mhm.
for a while,
I
It's
can't believe I've never
crazy.
been to Bucky's before. My family's all in Texas too. and
Really?
Never been.
It's awesome.
Based on what I'm seeing on the internet, Bucky's has a similar vibe to what Quick Trip's doing.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's bigger though too. Like it's this huge
It's
thing, right?
massive.
Like the size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of each store.
Yes, yes.
But I think Quick Trip's winning. By winning, it's not a
Andrew
competition.
likes Quick
He
Trip,
loves
man.
it, dude.
Jeez.
He loves it.
I will fight for
He
Quick
sent me
Trip.
like a whole case study on their employees like last night, actually to all of our friends.
Oh yeah, there's a Harvard case study, or a Harvard business study from 2010, speaking on the same thing. And now, it like 15 years later, almost, like they've doubled their size. Like, it's a testament to what that article was talking about. Like,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And speaking on to that, there's another example. Gary Vaynerchuk has a good story that he tells where one of his employees like messed up. This was like a client that took was maybe like half of their revenue at the time that this was happening. And the client messed up, and that not the client, the employee messed up with that client, and the client told him he had to fire that client in order for them to stay with him, and he said bye.
Yeah,
And then they
yeah.
actually stayed with him because of that. Actually, so
Wow.
he didn't even lose the client
Yeah.
or his
wow.
employee. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Win-win. That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, that's tough, especially when you have employees that make maybe bad decisions too.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
totally get it. And culture is like so important. Like for you
Yeah.
to develop that is awesome. I've been reading a book. I've been telling Andrew because one of his bosses is like actually a client of. Have you heard of Dan Martell? Have
Mhm.
you heard of him?
Yep.
So he, I was reading his book on Audible. He was talking about like 80% done for you is 100% awesome. So meaning when you delegate things, don't expect it to be perfect.
Yeah.
But even if it's at 80%, that's great, because then you can take your daughter to her first day of kindergarten, or your son or whatever, to like, it's 100% amazing for you to get your time back, which is
Yeah.
most important. And I love that. And it's very, very challenging, especially in the very beginning when it's just you know how to do everything exactly right. And by the way, no one's probably ever going to do it exactly as good as
Right.
you. And so to give away those controls is like one of the hardest things, I think,
Yeah.
in entrepreneurship, and learning that lesson from
Yeah.
becoming solopreneur to like a business owner with employees.
Yeah.
And so you said you've been starting to do that and
Yep.
delegate. How has that process been for you as well?
I love it, man. I love it. I love getting stuff off my plate, and especially when it is people who know more than I do. When I'm talking about bookkeeping and accounting, I don't know a lot about that, and so when I can hire someone who I know is a lot better than me, I'm happy to give that off, right? The hard thing is things like driving the trailer, and there's a little bit more risk in that,
Right.
and so, but at the same time, I couldn't agree more. When I'm working with employees and I was so proud because that job yesterday we did of cleaning up the lot next to us, I didn't even initiate it. The guy who was working with me did. And so there was like a proud dad moment where I was like, yes, man. I'm like, that's what we're about, you know? So seeing, and that's what I think great leadership is, and by no means am I saying like I'm a great leader, but I do think leaders find people to replace themselves, right?
Right.
And there's a temptation of the ego to get in the way of saying like, well, no one can fill my spot.
Right.
No one can, but I hope someone can, because I hope they excel. I hope they do better than me, because, you know, I want to raise up people that can do that, because then it does give me more time with my family, and they might do it differently, but it doesn't mean it's wrong either. Right. So I'm a big fan and advocate of delegating. I don't want to do all the work, but I think that's also just a part of my personality. I'm not about it, about doing all the work. So I love being able to start passing stuff off. I mean, even my wife, she's a very administrative minded person. So she does a lot of that for us. Yeah. It's a good balance for sure. So, so she's a huge help. She's super supportive. So it's